At 5:47 a.m., July 24, 2025, off the Orinoco Delta, the Caribbean dawn split with the roar of engines. 41 Venezuelan fast craft, 36 militia go-fasts, and 5 Navy attack boats closed on a U.S. logistics ship, logistics vessel 88 Bravo, moving between Guyana's offshore fields and the open Atlantic. To a casual eye, it was just a scuffed supply ship. It wasn't. Deep below deck sat palletized jet fuel and encrypted avionics for a nearby U.S. carrier group, standing watch over the Essequibo flashpoint.
They continue to send drugs into our country, Venezuela. Yeah, they've been very
Headlines blared of a bounty on Nicolas Maduro and U.S. destroyers shifting closer to Venezuelan waters. Caracas denounced it as provocation and surged militia and naval assets to the edge of the map. In that tinderbox, this interdiction was the spark. RPGs, heavy machine guns, and coastal-grade rocket pods lit the sea like meteor fire. The attackers picked their choke point: perfectly shallow water, tight lanes, cluttered traffic. They wanted a quick kill, a viral victory, an oil corridor panic. They missed one thing. 180 miles to the northeast, USS Gerald R. Ford had already spun up a rescue strike drones, jets, Seahawks, special operators, to turn a would-be humiliation into smoke on the horizon. Welcome to Navy Air Force. This is the story of a high-risk ambush and the U.S. response that shook the Caribbean. 88 Bravo kept to a merchant lane east of Trinidad, threading a corridor that had become America's newest energy artery. Tankers queued, rigs burned bright, and insurers watched every ping of AIS. For U.S. planners, the ship wasn't a slow freighter, it was a forward artery. Fuel to keep F-35C sorties hot, encrypted mission modules for long-range strikes, and spares to hold a carrier group on station near the contested waters off Guyana. Across the water, the Bolivarian Navy could put modern hulls on the line. Spain's Navantia had delivered Venezuelan offshore patrol vessels Guaycari-class Avante 2200 and Guaycamacuto-class Avante 1400 that formed a credible coastal backbone. From shore, C-802A/YJ-83 anti-ship missiles gave teeth to coastal batteries. The air picture could be wrapped by S-300VM anti-2500 long-range air defense. On top of that, Su-30 Mk2 fighters and Mohajer/SANT type UAVs gave Caracas eyes and reach. None of it was theoretical, and in this corridor, narrow, busy, and political capability plus timing could write headlines before breakfast. Captain James Holt and his 12-person crew ran quiet. They drilled rappel borders routines, carried M4s and shotguns, and taped laminated damage control checklists at every hatch. Still, something about this sunrise was wrong. Too many wakes and too many dark hulls tucked into AIS clutter. 5:47 a.m. The pack broke cover. 36 militia go-fast flared wide, 4 to 5 fighters each. PK miss, braced on bows. RPGs tipped and waiting. 5 attack boats held 2 nautical miles out, rails showing the angular glint of coastal-grade rockets. A white streak tore the sky. The first rocket speared past the starboard bow and detonated in a wall of water that hammered 88 Bravo's plating and split a fuel line. Alarms. Smoke. Holt's voice went iron. Seal the engine room. Return fire. Tracers stitched the dawn, but mass and geometry took over. Grapnels flew. Ladders thumped steel. The boarding began. Holt flipped a guarded cover and stabbed a switch. A burst of encrypted Link 16 distress code jumped to the sky bound for CVN 78 Gerald R. Ford, loitering northeast of Tobago, with a Burke-class destroyer on the screen line. The attackers cheered. The beacon had already called a storm. The 5 Venezuelan attack craft stayed just outside small arms range and volleyed subsonic anti-ship rockets. One smashed aft, rupturing a watertight bulkhead and kicking a fire in the engine space. Foam hissed. Smoke rolled. Deck plates vibrated. The go-fast slashed in at 50 knots, circling to rake the rails and pin the Americans under a scythe of machine gun fire. Holt sailors answered in crisp pairs from behind steel and cargo, but the second rocket airburst peppered bridge windows with razor glass. 2 Americans went down on the forward catwalk, their harnesses catching them against the rail. Grappling hooks found purchase. Boots hit paint. Close quarters chaos erupted across the cargo deck stab of flashlights, shouted commands in Spanish, brass skittering on slick steel. A sailor took a butt stroke to the jaw and collapsed. Another held a hatch against a rush. giving the damage control team a handful of precious seconds to dog it shut. Holt caught a glimpse through smoke, stenciling on a launcher tube aboard an outer attack boat, export markings not typical of Venezuelan stocks. This wasn't opportunistic banditry. It was a message. 7 survivors were zip-tied on the port side, forced to their knees. Enemy radios crackled, "Tow the prize, film it, flood social feeds before U.S. jets show." They didn't know they were already on a dozen American screens, from Red Crown in the Hawkeye to the Combat Information Center of a destroyer whose newest weapon hummed quietly. 8-8, Bravo drifted, tow lines trailing, a smoking billboard in a corridor the world could not afford to close. The clock started minutes until the first shadow crossed the water. 5:51 a.m. The Ford's flag plot washed scarlet. Rear Admiral Laura Vance didn't raise her voice. Caribe resolve. Execute. Aye. The flight deck went kinetic. 10 MH-60 Seahawks rolled from their bays, crews strapping in 120 Navy SEALs and Marine Raiders with suppressed M4s, breaching kits, and frags. Their gun spun check fires. 5F/A-18 Echo/Foxtrot Super Hornets eased onto the catapults, bellies heavy with GBU-32s JDAMs and standoff missiles. An E-2D Hawkeye taxied, dish-turning the airborne brain to stitch ship sensors, drone feeds, and radar into one fused fight picture. 20 MQ-25 Stingray drones vaulted skyward, quiet endurance, IRIs, precision micro-munitions. Beneath the surface, 2 UUVs slipped free to map shoals and hull signatures in the shallows where fast boats like to hide. On the screen line, USS Delbert D. Black brought its HELIOS directed energy weapon to power. A high-energy beam that shows nothing but erases engines, cooks exposed ordnance, and says stop without a single splash. A Coast Guard cutter slid wide to herd civilian traffic out of the kill box. First drone video hit the plot. 5 attack craft resetting 2 miles out, launch rails glinting, clusters of go-fasts on 8-8 Bravo's port quarter. IR pips marking the hostage group forward port 9 heat signatures, 2 not moving well. The UUV breadcrumb trailed landward into a cove on the Paria Peninsula fast boat sheds, a shore radar, and something under an earthen revetment that looked far too much like a mobile coastal launcher. Synchronize, Vance said. Pull their teeth, free our ship, erase the launcher. Link 16 lit green from deck to sky. Seahawks clawed upward, rotors drumming. Hornets ripped from the cats, afterburners blooming orange. The Hawkeye climbed and began to sing targets into every friendly headset. 4 minutes after the beacon, the horizon changed shape. 6:02 a.m., 20 MQ-25 skimmed the wavetops. Their autonomy cores stacked targets in milliseconds. The first strokes went to the teeth. HELIOS lanced the exposed launch rails on 2 attack craft, metal turning white, hot until propellant cooked off. Both boats blossomed into rolling fireballs that folded back into the sea. The drones pivoted to the go-fasts. Precision microbombs stitched the waterline. 3 hulls disintegrated, others slewed, engines coughing. Men dove into the sea. The ocean offered no cover. Seahawks thundered in over 8-8 Bravo. Ropes dropped like striking cobras. SEALs and Raiders hit steel in disciplined files, fanned, cleared, and cut. Suppressed carbine shots cracked in clean pairs. A Raider team locked down the forecastle, cutting a boarding squad that tried to drag a hostage toward the rail. Bridge in 30. A team leader breathed. Hostages, forward port, 9 confirmed. Flashbangs tumbled under the bridge, combing white sun. Thunderclap. 3 gunmen folded before they could bring steel to bear. Below, medics clipped zip ties and pushed combat gauze into jagged wounds. The engine room fire was contained. Shoring held. No further American losses. Seaward, the Delbert D. Black's laser stitched another attack craft into silence. The last 2 boats tried for skinny water too late. A pair of MQ-25s walked micro-munitions down their foaming wakes. One capsized, the other went dead and surrendered. Then came the source. The Hawkeye called out a radar pulse, and a hot cluster in that Paria Cove fast boat sheds, cabling into concrete, and a revetment sliding open on a long, clean shape. Mobile coastal launcher, the airborne intercept controller reported. Target quality cleared hot. 5 Super Hornets rolled inverted and came down from 30,000 feet, wings glittering in the sun. JDAMs came off clean, GP Smart Brains riding coordinates beamed by drones and the E-2D. The first pair punched the revetment, The second walked across the boat sheds. The finisher took the shore radar. The hillside belched smoke and then heaved as a buried magazine cooked off, turning bunkers into overlapping domes of orange flame. A late-arriving MQ-9 slid a Hellfire through a camouflage door. A secondary blew a chunk of the slope into the air and stamped a black fan across the tree line. Back aboard 8-8, Bravo. An American flag cracked in the rotor wash as the last SEAL element cleared the aft ladder well. About 30 Venezuelan fighters lay dead or wounded on or alongside the hull. More than 24 flailed in the water with hands up. On the beach, ISR counted heat signatures cooling amid slabs of smoking concrete. The coastal launcher site was a scorched scar. 10 minutes from first rope to ship secure, drones to find, lasers to defang, jets to erase, and humans to finish the close work. By 7:20 a.m., the corridor was open. 8-8. Bravo steadied on new bearings. Hostages stabilized. The flag flying. In under 2 hours, a Venezuelan-led seizure flipped into a U.S. rescue strike that shattered the attack flotilla and erased a coastal launcher on the Paria Peninsula. The Trinidad-Guyana lanes breathed again. Markets jolted. Crude spiked on headlines, then settled as traffic resumed. AIS tracks showed tankers ramping back to speed through the gap, confidence restored by a response that layered AI drones, directed energy defense, carrier air, and special operations into a ruthless, minute-by-minute sequence. Later, satellite frames caught abandoned go-fasts, pulled up on remote beaches and black scorch marks, clawing a crescent into the Paria coast. Captured gear told the rest. Crates with Venezuelan ordnance codes, guidance packages compatible with C802, A/YJ83, and fragments of documentation that intelligence shops would pick apart for months. Caribbean partners and European allies urged restraint, even as they praised the precision. Washington said it simply, freedom of navigation is not negotiable. The lesson? Modern sea control doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It weaves sensors, autonomy, lasers, and humans into a handful of decisive minutes that decide whether a strait stays open or slams shut. The question? How far do state backers push shore-hugging proxy fights before the gray zone burns into open war, and how do you counter without lighting the wider map? What do you think? Was the coastal battery a one-off headline grab or the first card in a longer game? Tell us below. This video is for entertainment and education, based on open-source data. It is not an official report. Navy Air Force tells these stories to honor the quiet strength that keeps the sea lanes free.